Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really powerful idea from the work of Sean Achor. What if that formula we all know for success, work hard, get successful, and then you'll be happy, what if that's all completely backward? Let's just dive right in. Have you ever felt like you're on a treadmill, just chasing after a version of happiness that always seems to be one more promotion, one more goal, just right around the corner? Yeah, you're not alone. And according to the science we're looking at today, you might just be running in the wrong direction entirely. I mean, from the time we're kids, this is the formula we're taught, right? The logic seems so simple. If you just put your head down and work hard enough, you'll eventually hit your goals, you'll be successful, and then, finally, you get to cash in your happiness chips. But what if that whole model isn't just a little off, but totally upside down? And that brings us to a really important point. This chase has a real cost. It turns out that following that old formula isn't just, not very effective. It can actually be pretty damaging. So while he was teaching at Harvard, Sean Achor noticed something really disturbing. In this relentless race for achievement, some of the brightest students on the planet were cutting themselves off from the single greatest predictor of their long-term well-being, their friends, their family, their social support. They were sacrificing relationships for grades, and in the end, just paving a direct path to burnout. So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, this is where it gets really good. Let's dive into the core idea that pretty much changes everything: the happiness advantage. This chart just lays it out so perfectly. The old formula treats happiness like it's this prize waiting for you at the finish line, but tons of research in positive psychology flips that around, showing that happiness is actually the starting block. When your brain is positive, you're more engaged, more creative, more resilient. In other words, happiness is the fuel, not the reward. And this isn't just some feel-good mantra, okay? This is a huge shift in how we understand performance. It's kind of like when Copernicus realized, hey, wait a minute, the Earth actually revolves around the sun. Well, decades of data now make it pretty clear. Success revolves around happiness, not the other way around. And the benefits are, well, they're profound. Take the famous nun study. Researchers looked at the diaries of young nuns way back in the 1930s, and they found that the nuns who expressed more joy and positive emotions in their writing lived, on average, a full 10 years longer than the others. 10 years! That's the real-world power of a positive brain. Okay, so if happiness is the advantage, how do we actually get more of it? The really good news is that we can actively rewire our brains to make positivity our default setting. Let's look at how that works. First, we have to understand this common trap our brains can fall into. It's called the negative Tetris effect. So if you play Tetris for hours and hours, you start seeing those falling blocks everywhere, right? Even when you close your eyes. Well, the same thing happens in our jobs. A lawyer who's trained to spot flaws all day starts seeing flaws everywhere, at work, at home, with their family. Your brain just gets stuck in this pattern of scanning for the negative. But here's the cool part. We can flip that pattern around. We can create a positive Tetris effect with a super simple 2-minute daily exercise. At the end of your day, just write down 3 new things that went well. And, this part is absolutely key, write down why they went well. This literally starts training your brain to look for the positives all day long. And the results are just staggering. Research has shown that doing this for just 1 week can boost your happiness and reduce symptoms of depression for up to 6 months. Think about that. It's a tiny investment of time that literally rewires your brain to have a more optimistic default setting. So, rewiring our brain, that's one huge piece of the puzzle. The next is about tackling the biggest barrier to pretty much any change: inertia. I mean, knowing we should do something is one thing, but actually doing it, that's a whole different ballgame. We all know we should probably exercise more or eat a little healthier. The author calls this the gap between common sense and common action. Knowledge alone is often totally useless if you don't have a bridge to actually get you to act on it. So how do we build that bridge? Well, the usual approach is to just try and use more willpower, right? Just be stronger. But study after study shows that willpower is a limited resource. It's like a muscle. It gets tired the more you use it. If you spend your whole day resisting donuts in the break room, you're going to have less mental energy for other stuff later. Relying on willpower alone is basically a strategy for failure. So the solution isn't to work harder, it's to work smarter. This brings us to the 20-second rule. The whole idea is to lower what's called the activation energy for good habits and raise it for bad ones. It's all about making good choices the path of least resistance.
Here's a perfect example. Acker wanted to practice his guitar more often, but the 20 seconds it took him just to get the guitar out of the closet was enough of a barrier that most days he just didn't. So what'd he do? He moved it to a stand right in the middle of his living room. By taking away that tiny bit of friction, playing became the easy default choice. And he used the same logic in reverse. To cut back on his TV habit, he just took the batteries out of the remote and put them in a drawer in another room. That extra 20 seconds of effort was just enough of a hassle to make him stop and think, do I really want to watch this? It broke the mindless habit.
You can apply this everywhere. Want to work out in the morning? Sleep in your gym clothes. Want to eat an apple? Don't hide it in the back of the fridge. Put it right on the counter. These small, little tweaks to your environment basically bypass willpower and make your good habits almost automatic.
Now, these little changes might not seem like a big deal on their own, but they are absolutely the start of something huge. You've probably heard of this concept. It's often called the butterfly effect. Because every small habit we build, every little positive shift we make in our mindset, it doesn't just affect us. It creates a ripple effect. A more positive mindset makes you a better coworker, a more present parent, a more supportive friend, and that spreads the advantage to everyone around you. So the ultimate takeaway here is pretty simple, but it's life-changing. Success doesn't lead to happiness. Happiness leads to success. And by consciously rewiring our brains and redesigning our environment, we can build this incredible advantage for ourselves. So that really just leaves one question. What tiny 20-second change will you make today to start your own ripple effect?